know if I'm going to cover a whole 1 hour show about it. I think I'm probably just going to headline it like the first 20 minutes of the show and then move on to something more important. But I will tell you if it got sold, who bought it, and when allegedly you'll see the release, and how much can you invest and where can you invest if investments are possible. So we're going to be talking about that stuff. He says you got to bring 150 million Chinese from China. Nah. You got to be careful. If you bring 150 million Chinese people from China, ISIS is not going to like that. It's okay to take their social media account and bring it over here, but to bring 150 million actual individuals over here, I love the Chinese, but do you understand how compact that they are in Asia with the 4 billion plus people they got over there? Do you see how we don't get along with the 385 million Americans that we got over here? Could you imagine adding 150 million of anybody from anywhere to the we don't like to share and we got to have 30 acres of space between us and our neighbor? Could you imagine putting another 150 million people here? Well, probably you could, because you probably would imagine that all 150 million of them will be living in Wisconsin because they can just build a high rise and just put everybody in one place. They got 4 billion people. They can handle overpopulate Wisconsin. Call it New China. You don't like nobody but Greek. It's all about the money. It's all about the money. Well, I like women when they're making money for me. The hand is strong. The hand is strong. Now, check this out, though. Imagine that you woke up tomorrow and there was $50 million in your bank account. This has happened to some people before. It's the dream, right? Everybody thinks about that. The end of all your problems, right? He said, I'm not going there. Now, you think that when this happens to you, it's the start of real freedom. But what if that dream was actually beginning a psychological nightmare instead? Like, for a surprising number of people, that's exactly what it is. Now, you've seen the headlines, the sensational stories we scroll past with a mix of pity and morbid curiosity. Lottery winners who end up broke, athletes who earned generational wealth only to lose it all within years of retirement. It's easy to chalk it up to a lack of financial smarts or just plain greed. But that's barely scratching the surface of the story. The real story, the one you don't hear, is about the profound and often devastating psychological toll that comes first. The paranoia, the isolation. Me and Michael, we're already there. Now, in addition to that, you have the dribbling anxiety. And this is going to shatter a person's life long before the bank account hits zero. You're going to find yourself extremely crippled with anxiety behind a lot of the stuff that happens from when you get a lot of money in a short period of time. Like, it just boom hits it, like win a lawsuit, get millions, or win a lottery, get millions. Or those folks that had that accidental banking error where they deposited a bunch of money into your account and they took this. I would have did the same thing. She took all the money out of her account and brought it somewhere else. That's exactly what I would have did. I would have took it. Matter of fact, wire transfer it. That way they can't even call collect. I would have wire transferred it, withdrew it, stuffed it under a mattress, put it in a safe deposit box. I did something. That money would not have been accessible. I would have paid some bills. I would have just, by the time they come looking for it, money would have been gone. Or like those folks who had found that duffel bag full of cash that fell off the back of that money truck. They wouldn't have got that back if I would have passed by that duffel bag. I don't care what the logo is on that bag. I would have brought that bag back to my house, took some cash, went somewhere, bought me a safe, stacked that cash in that safe, and slowly deposited that money into a different account where they wouldn't even notice that I had it. I would have been spending a lot more cash on buying things that I needed and taking the rest of the cash and slowly but surely throwing it up into an investment portfolio. And just be like, damn, be paying the rent with a money order and mailing cashier's checks to the utility bills and the car notes and all of this other stuff, and still depositing money into the bank and taking the rest of the money and putting it into what you call it, the stock market. Is that I would have bought hookers. That's what Floyd Mayweather did over there, spending $10,000, 10, 15, $25,000 in one night in a strip club. That's how you stay broke. This is the dark side of unexpected wealth. It's a phenomenon so common that it has a name: sudden wealth syndrome. He said, no, really, listen to him, not me. Y'all right, like and subscribe now, because I'm going to tell y'all what's really going on. Today, we're not just looking at the numbers. We're going to explore the human cause. So we'll follow the journey of a character we'll call John to understand this emotional roller coaster from the inside. I should not have said John, because that has so many implications. But this John is going to be the anal of our discussion. And we're going to dissect the psychological traps waiting for the suddenly rich, and most importantly, explore the path out of the nightmare. Because the truth is, coming into a massive fortune in a short period of time isn't the end of your problems. It's the beginning of a whole new set, ones you're almost certainly not prepared for. I know a lot of y'all seen those TikTok videos from Franklin, where his homeboys be, making excuses and stuff like that. He'll come out of nowhere. How you doing, mixed martial arts? It's good to see you again. And he'll be like, oh man, I like money. Who cares about these females? Go get you that money. They want money. So if you want females, you got to get money. Blah, blah, blah. Go get the money. Get the money. I want these problems. I want these problems. I want rich people problems. That's the kind of stuff that Franklin would talk about. And I'm like, I want the problems too. To wake up every day and decide which person I'm going to allow to beg money from me out of the network of friends and family that normally would not have gave me $1. I would prefer to have that as a problem, that I have enough money to give to somebody else, and I'm just doing a Shark Tank scenario, like give me your proposal, like The Godfather. On the day of my lasagna's making, you ask this request of me. I want those problems. Before the winning numbers were called, our character John, he has a life that was normal. It was a life of familiar routines and manageable anxieties. He had a 9-to-5 job. He didn't love it, but he didn't hate it that much either. A mortgage on a modest house in the suburbs, and the usual worries: saving for his kids' college, fixing a leaky faucet, and whether they'd have enough for a decent vacation this year. His dreams were, relatable. He dreamt of paying off his credit cards, of telling his boss he quit, of not having that knot of financial stress in his stomach or in his throat every single month. That feeling, the affluence, when you get paid and your check is smaller than what you had hoped, and you have more bills due than you got money already deposited in your account, and you spend days, weeks analyzing and micromanaging every single dollar that comes out of the account, trying to make sure that all of the bills get paid while you stretch the gas money until the next check. That feeling You done put in double overtime and you still ain't got enough money to pay your bills. That feeling. Like I said, do you guys talk about the Charlie Kirk situation at all? Uh, I could pause for a second and look at this. What happened with Charlie Kirk? Because like the last important person that I heard about was Hulk Hogan, and before him it was like Eddie Guerrero. That much space, you know. When I hear about Vince McMahon, like I'll be devastated. You know, when Triple H goes, I'll be heartbroken. When R.I.P. Undertaker is not a gimmick, it's a reality, I'll be astonished. But like, who's Charlie Kirk? Michael says R.I.P. Charlie Kirk. What did Charlie Kirk do? Did Charlie Kirk create something for the average broke person to make some money? He was shot in the neck in broad daylight. Oh, a political commentator. He was in the neck, like in the front or in the side. Like it was like he was talking and it just got and he just fell out. And that was on national TV. Dang. See, now for those individuals who be sitting over here trying to talk trash about how podcasters don't got a hard way to go, this guy got for saying stuff on TV. I ain't trying to cap, but I'm just saying, if we don't back our situation by, ooh, that's really close to where I'm at. He said Utah, no, Utah Valley University. Yeah. Woo. So y'all got to be careful. Y'all not supposed to have no speeches near no colleges because y'all know that these folks be shooting up these schools. You notice it's Utah and not Louisiana. You don't never hear no school shootings in them minority states like Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. You know, you don't hear about school shootings down south. You know, the only shootings you hear about in Texas is the ones from those folks that jumped the fence. But in New York and Brooklyn and in the not the Bahamas, in Beverly Hills and Utah, it's like shooting in the schools. Like, what's up with that? In front of hundreds of people. Well, I would assume so because I mean, if he's a political commentator, he would have been in the middle of a political speech, and somebody took his head off his shoulders, got him like they got Malcolm X. He should have got his hands out their pockets. Yeah, we do. Texas and Florida have several school shootings. Well, Florida got more like the children smashing each other in the bathroom than they got like school shootings. But you don't never see those minority, like I just said, those minority-filled neighborhoods, those minority-filled cities with school shootings. We had drive-bys in the neighborhood. We used to take the trouble from the school and take it to the streets at the bus stop and stuff like that, down the block kind of stuff. We didn't have beef at school. Kids fist fought in school and they took everything else to the streets. Everybody else, like, nah, we gonna solve this in a classroom. We're not even gonna wait for recess. We gonna hash this out in biology class. Time to dissect. Chainsaw. some purge methods. It is an interesting cultural thought exercise. It is an interesting cultural thought exercise. Specifically because certain cultures were taught to use their fists to solve their disputes. Certain cultures were taught to use firearms to solve their disputes, and other cultures were taught to turn the other cheek to solve their disputes. Now, the ones who used to turn the other cheek to solve their disputes would get picked on and beat up. The ones who used their fists didn't get beat up as often. The ones who use guns do mass shootings. You should probably start with talking your way out of that situation. It is what it is. Now, back to this thing about losing money. Now, John, one Tuesday evening, the impossible thing he experiences is 6 numbers on a flimsy piece of paper where he bought it on a whim, and it matched the 6 balls drawn on TV. Whole different thing. The shock was electric, a physical jolt that left him breathless. And he checked the chicken, checked it again and again and again, and disbelief, you recognize, uh, gave way to a wave of euphoria so powerful that he felt like a drug. $50 million. It wasn't just a number, it was a magic word that promised to erase everything this guy ever had. You know what I mean? Every worry was gone. Michael says, or Mixed Martial Arts says, I think younger white people are more frequently being radicalized on the internet than black and brown teens. Well, the black and brown teens are shooting each other at the traffic light. They're not shooting up the schools. So I'm not saying that black and brown teens don't use guns inappropriately. I'm just saying that they don't do it at school. The black and brown teens will be shooting they op at the traffic light while they mama driving the car. So mama sitting there watching her little boy get a bullet to the head because his op was at the stoplight waiting on him to make the turn. So I'm not saying that kids ain't misappropriating guns just because they're black or brown. I'm just saying that the minority kids could be because they choose not to go to school at all anyway. Prefer not to have that beef happen at the classroom. That's what I'm saying. Because you have not yet heard, and I have yet to hear, that a mass shooting was started by a minority in a classroom. And you got to understand, there's a difference between minority doing a drive-by in a nearby suburban area or doing a drive-by by a community center or a local playground versus the mass shooting that happens by the non-minority person in the classroom. So we're not saying that the minority kids don't be out there acting bad. We're just saying that their selective choice, that the school is a safe haven for education, and everything that's not education is taken out to the streets. That's what we're saying. Michael says, mix what's your age is sad, but at our age, it won't affect us. Yeah, it's not going to affect us at all. I'm late 20s. Ooh, very young. Very young. Is a drug, right? I think you may have misinterpreted my message. I am agreeing with you. Oh, no. I completely interpreted your message the way like we're on the same page here. Yeah. These kids is reckless. And that's the behavior and decision making pattern of these children is the reason why gun law fanatics are trying to put stricter rules on the acquisition and usage of guns. But the problem is that the acquisition and usage of guns by law-abiding citizens is going to make it harder for law-abiding citizens to have guns to protect themselves. The people who break laws don't follow laws. So if you make it harder for honest people to get guns, then less honest people will have guns. But that's not going to stop the dishonest people from having guns, because the people who don't follow the law is not going to follow the law no matter how strict you make the rules. But the honest people who make proactively important decisions are going to more likely have the ability to defend themselves from the dishonest people if the honest people have more accessibility to lawfully owned and operated firearms. Now, the only thing that I believe that they should modify with the laws is the cause and effect consequences, because while I am responsible for what I do with my firearm, I should also be responsible for what I allow someone else to do with my firearm. And that is something that I have not seen in the law. The law is cutthroat that if person A uses the firearm to commit a crime, then person A committed the crime. But if person A uses person B's firearm to commit the crime, person B should be held responsible to some degree if person B did not report the firearm stolen before the crime. Now, we have those circumstances where parties can legitimately not know that their firearm is missing, but we do have laws in place where they're supposed to be stored in a fashion where people cannot readily gain access to it. And we should be, as a responsible gun possessor, check the storage to make sure that it's still there. I check mine every day. to make sure that it's right where I put it at on the table where I can reach it. So that's just a question at hand. But they outside of that, yeah, the people who don't do what they're supposed to do, they just don't do what they're supposed to do. Michael says actually most people are being used for someone else's thoughts, pawns to motivate agendas. It's blind control. He's right. The thing is that even with that shooting that shooting is gonna set back AR-15 possession by a long shot. But that doesn't change the fact that if you do it right, you can get you some pretty lethal firearms with some pretty lethal ammunition that is still authorized to be used in all 50 states. And you can use that to protect yourself if the intent is to protect yourself. But not if your intent is to get out there and show out because you own a firearm. People are going to act bad on that. Now, back to the money talk, because that's what most of the people came here for. He's afraid of his wife. Well, if you're afraid, first of all, why'd you marry her if you're afraid of the wife? Because we're not in the 60s no more. You don't got no shotgun weddings no more. Shotgun weddings used to be that you were forcefully married to the woman at gunpoint, which nowadays is considered under duress, where it nullifies any agreement that you're pushed into. So where is it? Where is it? I mean, if he afraid of his wife, he should divorce her. He should go to one of those battered men shelters and get him some some therapy. Well, let's go back to the main guy. So John got his $50 million. The first few weeks were a blur of pure joy. And reason why, psychologists call this week the honeymoon period. Everything is always, when it's at the peak of euphoric pleasure, considered the honeymoon period. He said, no, you with the gun. You with the tan, freeze. What law did I break? The tan, freeze. On the ground, show me your passport. Where's your real ID? Back to you, John. That's right. Back to John. So the first stages of wealth, when you experience wealth all of a sudden, is essentially identified as a honeymoon period. And it is a totally liberating feeling. So John's going to quit his job in a blaze of glory. He's going to Austin 316, two middle fingers in the air, pee on the desk, drinking beers out the office, high-fiving his coworkers as he gets escorted out, and it's going to be fantastic. Walking out of the office feeling 10 feet tall. He paid off his mortgage with a single wire transfer, watching a debt that had shadowed him for 15 years vanish in an instant. Paid off some student loans. He bought a sprawling glass-walled mansion in the next town over right after he paid off his mortgage on his original house, the kind he used to gawk at in passing. He filled the garage with sleek sports cars he only ever driven on a video game. Now he just owns them in his house. Look, Michael said, leave your wife. That's the first thing. If she didn't help you buy the ticket, that's the first thing you're supposed to do. Divorce her first, then cash in on the ticket. or cash in on a ticket and fly all that money to a different country and set it up under an LLC and don't tell her about it. Now, for the first time in his adult life, John's going to feel free because, the $50 million, you're going to cover a lot of stuff with the first 10 million. He traveled first class, he stayed in presidential suites, and ordered the most expensive things on the menu without even looking at the price. I'm going to tell you, that's a good feeling to have. The world, which had always seemed to run on a set of rules he was struggling to keep up with, now seemed to bend to his will. He felt powerful, invincible. And this wasn't just financial freedom, it was an emotional and psychological release. Now, the constant low grade hum of anxiety that had been a soundtrack to his life was finally silent. He was genuinely, deliriously happy, right? He had won the game, or so he thought. But then the cracks began to appear. They were small at first. It started with a phone call, long lost cousin, and friends from high school he hadn't spoken to in decades were suddenly reaching out. Their voices dripping with fake warmth, their chats always circling back to a can't miss business idea or a sob story about a sudden hardship. Each call left a bitter aftertaste. Matter of fact, I actually had a situation happen to me earlier today. We were driving around. I was on my way into the elevator, and I got a call from a Florida correction facility. I'm sitting over here like, who do I know that would be that way? Because it ain't my homeboy. My homeboy just got over COVID and took his ass back to work. So I'm trying to figure out who got locked up. But they didn't leave a name. And then I think the call dropped because I was in the elevator. So they didn't call me back. He said, "Let's go party." Nah, we straight. Yeah, we could go to McDonald's and order everything on the menu. That's a once in a lifetime effort. You got money now. Yeah, you got money now. You got friends. You got family. You got all kind of people that you ain't never seen come out of nowhere and be like, "Oh, can folk, let me borrow some capital." No, matter of fact, they ain't even plan on giving it back to you. You got so much, just give me some capital. Make my life better. Hell yeah. Look, they got some females that be running up there. It's your baby, child support. Look, now they got some dirt going on around here. Now, the first really hard conversation was with his own brother. They'd always been close, but now there was a new awkward tension in the air. Must be nice. His brother says one afternoon, trying to sound casual, not having to worry about anything. The unspoken question hung heavy between them. So, where's my cut? You know what I mean? The pressure to share what the one person won, to be generous as a benefactor and give to others just because he got it. They come out the woodwork. Yeah, I'm your son now, right? And this pressure is immense. He wrote his brother a check, pretty sizable one, but it didn't fix the tension. It just changed it. Now, instead of resentment, there was expectations. There's a relationship now that was no longer about brotherhood, it was about transaction. So this pattern repeated itself with almost everyone. Friendships once based on shared jokes and mutual respect were now tainted by his wealth. So he started to feel like a walking ATM, and I am not a walking ATM. So no, you get nothing from me. I take care of my dependents, and that's it. Oh, look, yup, someone will sue you for some bullshit from 15 years ago outside of the statute of limitations. You paying for lawyers trying to settle out of court. Y'all got to be careful because when y'all ain't got shit, y'all ride or dies to be y'all ride or dies to the bitter end. But as soon as you come up, especially $50 million, all them deep, dark secrets that they was keeping from you or keeping for you in the back of their mind turn into blackmail, bro. Like, man, you don't want X, Y, and Z to get out. What if so and so and so and so hear about it? Come on, man. Give me $50,000. And this is your homie from way back when. This is your family member from birth. Whether it's a brother, a child, a parent, aunt, uncle, niece, nephew. It happens. It comes from everywhere. The joy of giving something he'd fascinated about was replaced by a sense of obligation and a gnawing suspicion. So, do these people actually care about me or just my money? I've told you guys plenty of times. If the people come up and they redirect a question to money before they walk away, motherfucker came for the money. If they only came to figure out if you was doing all right and if you need anything, they should not ever mention anything about what they need, even if you ask. Because you're a millionaire, they should have enough respect for you to not put you in a position to feel obligated to give them a fucking dollar. But that's not human nature. So what happens? The paranoia creeps in. He starts screening his calls. He stopped going to his old neighbor's bar, hanging out with friends and stuff, where the congratulations now felt like veiled questions for cash, right? They just slow it down and just start saying, oh man, hey, let me get a couple dollars. Let me get a few $100s. Help me with this business deal. Help me keep from losing my car. Help from keep me losing my house. I'll come work for you. I'll cook. I'll clean. I'll be your personal assistant. You know what I mean? I'll be your chauffeur. Pay me $50 an hour to be your chauffeur. I'll stand outside with the car. Right? All kinds of stuff. MC Hammer, perfect example. He finds himself growing suspicious of everyone, even his wife. Like you said, divorce her. Should have did that. He didn't though. And he'd catch himself wondering if his wife's affection had changed and if she saw him differently now. The thought was poison in his relationship and he knew it was irrational, but he couldn't shake the feeling. He was becoming isolated and trapped in his big empty mansion. Probably why rich people live alone, except for Hugh Hefner. But Hugh Hefner was getting paid from the women that was staying up in his mansion from the Playboy parties. P. Diddy tried to replicate that, but it didn't end well. 30+1 years got dropped down to 20. Still the rest of his life at his current age. Now, the silence he once craved was now deafening. John started questioning who he even was his whole life. He was John, the project manager, John, the guy who's good with spreadsheets, his work, his struggles, his middle class identity. That is what defined him. But now, who is he now? He's a multimillionaire. John, the lottery winner. It felt hollow, unearned. He felt a profound sense of guilt, a strange shame for having so much when people have so little. And these are people that he loved. Now, the guilt, that's another emotion that's going to come up, was a heavy blanket smothering the joy that he was supposed to be feeling. Because he wasn't like me and Michael. Me and Michael would have been like, we're going to put this money somewhere and let it make more money for us. And I'm going to celebrate off of a budget of where the principal never changes, but I live off the dividends. Because if you had a $50 million portfolio that didn't move and you were getting back 20%, that's is 15%, off of $10 million, you'd be getting what? 15%. That would be $1.5 million off of every $10 million you had in the bank. So, that's what? $5 million? No. Yeah, 3, 4.5, 6, $7.5 million that you would earn every year off your 50 million. Yeah, quick math. That's a lot of money. If you were spending $7.5 million a year with $50 million on debt, or if you were spending $5 million a year, spending $3 million on taxation with $50 million on debt where you never touched the principal, you live in the high life, right? Like I said, my niece, my nice thing this week was having a Chevron gas to put money from my paintings into an account from or for the trailer park kids. That makes me feel good. Oh, that was nice. So he took some gas money and helped the trailer park kids come out. So you're gonna make you another M&M from 8 Mile, right? Right? Two will give you 20. That sounds like a good deal. Two will get you 20. Three will get you 15. Trying to make a sale. I got these bags, bro. Now look, everyone told John how lucky he was, right? But he was starting to feel cursed. Now the dream was rapidly curdling into a nightmare, and he was completely alone. Not I, said the black guy, because I would have only been using the principal off the interest. I would have been having that money directly deposited into a trust in a country that doesn't pay taxes, like St. Kitts and Nevis, so that I could have a non-residential trust that would pay me dividends to Asia, where in Asia, non-tax external funds, I would be able to live off of a bank account that would so reasonably direct deposit from Asia money, a percentage of the money into my American bank account. So they wouldn't even know where the source was. It would just be money traveling the world. So if I was getting $20 million as a payout from my $50 million, and that $20 million went to Asia, and out of the $20 million, I sent $2 million to America, and in America, I'm living off of $2 million a year. I'm still balling out of control. But when I decide to fly to Asia, private jet with Reverend Sapp, woo! give the give the U.S. Army like $20,000 to fly me on one of them B-2 bombers. Just fly me over Japan and let me jump out, parachute down, and land in the safari somewhere. Go play with some of their Siberian tigers. That's when you start a podcast, when you got $50 million strong, because then you can pay for the advertisement. Thinking like AAA millionaires. You got to move the money around, though. You got to move the money around. Use $250,000, get you some citizenship in other countries. That way you don't got to worry about it over here. You know, I'm telling you, there's ways to go about doing it. But and then you wouldn't be legally obligated by the United States in order to pay nobody nothing, because Asia, Russia, South America is not going to honor a litigation judgment from the United States. So you put your assets in another country. The only time that they freeze your international assets is when you're performing international crime. The DB Cooper. Exactly. So what John was going through wasn't just a run of bad luck or a stress of being rich. It has a name, and it is termed and coined by the psychologist Dr. Stephen Goldberg, sudden wealth syndrome, which is what we were talking about earlier, and it's also abbreviated as SWS. So now it's not an official clinical diagnosis that you'd find in a medical manual, but it is a very real condition that describes the unique distress and identity crisis that hits people who suddenly get a lot of money. And this is like overnight. You went from struggling being poor to being too rich for your own good. Literally. It's what happens when your financial reality changes completely overnight, but your brain and your emotions are left decades behind. It's a toxic cocktail of anxiety, guilt, and paranoia that can lead to total personal and financial ruin. So let's break down the nightmare that John was living in, our hypothetical John, using the SWS framework to see what was tearing his life apart. The first and most jarring part of SWS is the violent emotional swings. That initial honeymoon is a high that almost always follows by a crash. For many, the dominant emotion isn't joy, but a deep, debilitating guilt. They feel like they don't deserve the money. Not me. Fuck that. Especially if it came from a lottery ticket or an inheritance tied to a loved one's death. Not me. Fuck that. I lived. I am entitled to this money because I still have a pulse. I made it. Look, I'm gonna start acting like these females. You supposed to give it to me because I'm cute. The strained relationship, that's gonna be one of the things. Everybody's gonna be asking you for money. They're gonna be asking you to buy them stuff. They're gonna be asking you, oh, you know the church is gonna want 10% of your $50 million just because of the Lord. But if you were a savvy investor, you could buy the church for $5 million and rent it to the pastor. And now the congregation got to pay you, because not every pastor or deacon or rabbi or whatever owns the building that they do their service in. They usually rent the building out. Shoot. So if I was going to 10% to the church, I would buy the church from the people who own the church, and then tax write off the donation of them using the church at no monetary value, where the cost of rent would have been X number of dollars, and I'm taking a financial loss because of the church. Tax write off. Yeah, scammers. But your boy got that $45,000 for them folks left. Now, one question that some people ask themselves, those people that are riddled with guilt, not I. I am unilaterally involved in uniformity. So if I got it, I'm going to spend it the way I would have spent it if I didn't have it, so that I can always have some to spend. I ain't throwing all my money against the wall no more. We gotta take a percentage of it and do something meaningful with it and put the rest of it back so that it can keep giving us what we need. But this why me question is going to echo in their minds, creating a sense of shame that stops them from actually enjoying their new life. Do pastors pay taxes? No, they do not. No. First and foremost, the church is a seemingly non-profit entity, as long as they can prove that they are practicing religious practices under the church's tax identification number. The pastor, if he gets anything from the church in donation form, he can benefit from the church, because when the church buys food, he can get it. He can get some of it. When the church buys clothes, he can get some of it. When the church buys stuff, he can get some of it. And it is seemingly, because it's a gift, a donation, a charitable donation for a destitute individual, tax exempt, or not tax exempt, because there is a gift tax, but not too many people pay attention to that. Not too many people file taxes and say, oh, people gave me gifts, because that's what the lottery is. It's a prize or a gift. Gift tax and prize tax is almost the same. You know what I'm saying? So you go to a casino and they give you $40,000 truck, you still got to pay taxes on that gift, which is upward of like $10,000 or something like that, like $8,000 to $10,000 to get that truck. You say, come on, let me hold it for you. Come on, man. Let me hold $20 million for you, dog. Your pocket's heavy, dog. Let me help you out. Let me take a little bit of pressure off your back, bro. Now, this guilt is then layered with intense anxiety, because there's a constant nagging fear of losing that money. Somebody's going to steal it. Somebody's going to con you out of it. That they'll make one stupid decision and end up right back in the situation that they started in, or worse. Now, this fear can be paralyzing. And then there's the social pressure, because everyone around you, family, friends, the whole world, expects you to be ecstatic. You just won the lottery. You have no right to be stressed. And this forces people to wear a mask of happiness while they're internally drowning in confusion with only the makings of them feeling more and more alone. Now, think of William Bud Post, who won $16.2 million in 1988. Within a year, he was a millionaire in debt. His life became a hellscape of bad investments, lawsuits, and even an attempt on his life by his own brother, who hired a hitman. And it would be irony if he hired the hitman with the money he borrowed from his brother to knock out his brother. That would be just the most disrespectful scenario to be exposed to. Post later said, "I wish it never happened, that it was totally a nightmare. I was much happier when I was broke." His story is a brutal reminder that wealth doesn't eliminate problems, it just makes them bigger. For most of us, our identity is tangible and it is tangled up with our work, our struggles, and for most of us, our social circles. So we're teachers, mechanics, parents, providers. When a massive windfall erases that need to work, it can trigger a profound identity crisis. Unless you don't like working, people no longer feel defined by what they did, but what they have. And the shift is incredibly disorienting. And they feel disconnected from their old life and old friends who can no longer relate to their new reality. And a conversation about budgeting for groceries is pretty much impossible when one person can buy the entire grocery chain and the other person can't afford to buy everything in the cart. Where's Wilbur? Haven't seen him since winning the lottery. That's what y'all would say. Yeah, I would still do the podcast, but I'd have my own studio. I'd have my own camera crew. I'd have my own editing team. This shit would have like three dimensional, this would be really wonky. You'd be like, wow, this is a really good podcast. I know. $50 million back in it. Better be the best fucking podcast on the market. But this creates a huge chasm for people, leading to social and moral isolations from the very people who used to keep them grounded. So our character John felt this deeply during his experience. Deflection. Ah, yes, sir. And John wasn't the project manager that he used to be anymore. He wasn't the best friend or the person that was a rock in a relationship or whatever that he used to be. Now he is just the lottery winner. The pride he once took in providing for his family was gone and replaced by the simple act of writing a check, just signing a check and handing it off, or just swiping your black card, just doing whatever you want. His sense of self-worth, built on a lifetime of effort, just completely evaporated. He was adrift and he was a ghost in his own life, haunting a mansion that felt more like a prison. Probably because he didn't take his ass outside to the tennis court that had the two chicks in tennis skirts playing tennis, with the 5 chicks on the volleyball court playing volleyball, with the 17 chicks in the pool, with 4 other chicks in the hot tub, and he the only dude at the house. That's how Hugh Hefner used to do it. Maybe the most corrosive part of sudden wealth syndrome is going to be that paranoia, because it's the deeply unsettled feeling that everyone is after your money. Long lost relatives, old friends, and total strangers are going to come out of the woodwork with their hands out. Every interaction becomes suspect, because it doesn't matter if they start asking you for money when they first meet you, or if they hang out with you for a few hours and then they deviate the conversation from having a good time to them having a money crisis. For me, you could tell me that your money ain't right, and I'm gonna be like, damn, that sucks. That's it, bro. Like, I'm not gonna offer to help. I'm not gonna, nah, fuck all that shit. If I gave you a couple $1,000s to cover the shit that you needed covered, like I would have did if all I had was a couple $1,000s, that's it. Until you paid me back on the loan, I can't give you shit else. I don't care if I got $50 million. I told y'all, if y'all were loaning out money on contracts with interest rates, motherfuckers will stop asking you for shit. But you're gonna keep asking yourself, is this person being friendly, or are they sizing me up? Do they like me or my bank account? More often than not, it's going to be the latter. But this suspicion can curdle into full-blown siege mentality. And the newly wealthy start to doubt everyone, even their closest loved ones. They become mistrustful and withdraw, isolating themselves to protect their assets. But this social withdrawal, born of fear, only makes the loneliness and psychological distress worse. They build walls around themselves, both literally and metaphorically, and end up trapped. He said, and they will, believe me. Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I ask you guys to like and subscribe, but a lot of folks be like, oh, join my seminar. Give me some money. Give me some money. But consider that tragic story of Abraham Shakespeare, a Florida man who won $30 million lottery jackpot in 2006. He was known for being generous, but he was hounded by people asking for money. He once told his brother, I'd have been better off broke. And that's what usually, because these people feel obligated to pay. I don't give a fuck. I'm too busy to talk to you, much less take time to go withdraw some money out the bank account. They will never pay you back, but they will never ask for me for nothing else. So again, remember, because they say as long as I owe you, you'll never be broke. That's fine. But as long as you owe me, you can't ask me for no more money. So if I gave you $2,000 to cover something that you needed, which is a lot of money, and you ain't paid me back, you can't come back and tap me on the shoulder and ask me for nothing else. You're going to have to go and knock somebody loose to get your $2,000 and bring me my $2,000 plus interest, and then I'll issue you some more money. That's how that's going to work. And if you do, like I was talking about, anywhere between 3 and 12%, 3 and 10% be pretty good return on it. You gave them 2,000, they give you back 2,200. So if they need something else, it's gonna have to come out the money that they just gave me back. That's how you limit being used. But the gentleman eventually befriends a woman. Let's say the woman's Dee Moore, who offered to manage his money, right? She swindled him out of his home and his winnings. And when he threatened to expose her, she took his life and buried his body under the concrete. Whoo! Oh yeah, that's what they say. You have enough money, you'll never miss it. Right. But as my road dog, you should have enough money. You're not gonna need mine. You got that by your lonesome. You were holding it down when I was broke. You should be holding it down now that I'm not. Because whether or not you hold it down ain't got nothing to do with me. I can give you some moral support, but financial aid, nah, bro. Nah, bro. We're gonna have to start doing some hazing like the fraternity. Y'all gonna have to start doing some Shark Tank style petitions where you're gonna come up and tell me what you want and tell me what you need, and then I'm gonna make you do something degrading to get it. Because everybody's got a price. It just matters how much you're willing to pay. He said they won't ask you for 2,000, try 20,000. Well, I'm gonna have to do a financial background check on you. I'm gonna have to see if you got some assets. I mean, yeah, I'll still loan you the money. I got it. I'll still loan you the money. But I'm literally the bank with $50 million. I got more money in my bank than my bank has. That's crazy. So now I'm trying to ask myself from a multi-million-dollar perspective, you know what I mean? You know, do they got what they need to get me good? You right, gold digger. It's an extreme, terrifying example of how newfound wealth can make you a target. Now, faced with all this psychological pressure, people react in different ways. Some go on extravagant spending sprees, kind of a retail therapy to numb the anxiety, or to live up to the rich person role that they feel they've been given, which never smart. But this is what people see in the headlines. So people like Michael Corral, a 19-year-old in the United Kingdom, who won over $15 million, which is like $1 million a year almost of his life, and blew it all on parties, drugs, and cars, eventually having to ask for his old job back. Do you know how embarrassing that would be? That you, in a very short period of time, go from quitting your job because you're not broke anymore to crawling back. If you're going to keep that job, you might as well just work less hours and never quit. Special shout out to Let's Get It. Have you ever come into big money? Of course. There was a part of time where I was making like $15,000 a week. I was making so much money that I hired a small team of people to do the job for me so that I didn't have to do the job at all. You say, but the city canceled the contract because they were throwing the product in the river and it was causing some issues, and had to change occupations because while we were making $15,000 a week, the money wasn't going to a location where the money could generate more wealth. The money was coming in and it was being spent to operate the business, pay for the staff, pay for standard of living that I had at the time. And that these are the things that we learn in life when we then realize that, man, we would have took some of that extra money that we were making and then invested it in places where money would be making money for us, then we would have more money after the situation changes. How did you manage the money? With grace and care. I prioritized making sure that my employees got paid. I made sure that the product would come in. I made sure that all of the assets were paid for. The business actually still exists and it is still operating. It's just that the contract isn't there and the $15,000 a week from that contract isn't flowing in, but we're still operating in real estate. Yeah, yeah, money is growing. Money continuously grows. And that's the reason why we're talking about the dividend rotation strategy. And we're talking about investing with the core satellite portfolio, where you can take some of the stocks that we're using to grow our money and make money for you where you don't got to work. So that the hardest part of my day is sitting in this chair and talking on a computer instead of being out in the world, putting in a bunch of effort and burning up a bunch of gas to make money to do this exact same thing, to rest. I'm able to now take the whole day, like I told you guys before. Libra, I don't think astrological signs make a difference. But no, I wouldn't be a Libra. My siblings would be Libras. But yeah, it is a good learning process. But again, if you get the principal and spend it instead of getting the principal and then investing the principal and then living off of the dividends, you have more money over the long term. And that's one of the things that we learned with all of the things that we were doing. They did U biz WU. They they did biz with you. Oh, yes, people do business with me. People do business with me all the time. I have a bunch of clients in Asia right now. Usually we wrap up the podcast in like an hour and 20 minutes so that I can go talk to some of my clients in Asia. So yeah, people do business with me all the time. I continue to the one of the things that I've done since I was like 8 or 9 years old is find a business model and then automate it. I would expand on it so that I could generate enough revenue to pay somebody else to take it over, teach that person how to do what I was doing, and then give that person a decent percentage of what I was making. And now I no longer have to get out there and do the work. And I follow a method of promoting from within. So if I need to expand, I would have the first person train the second person, or the most effective person be a trainer and train all the rest of the people. And the most effective person who is a person who can do it as good as me or better than me. And then that person trains everybody else on how to do it. And now I don't have to train anybody and I don't got to work. Then I just pay a third party to pay for everybody's payroll. Now I'm paying a manager to monitor all of that. And now I only got to make one phone call. Call that manager. The manager can tell me about the payroll. The manager can tell me about the employees. That person's managing the schedule. But it starts with one position. It starts with making the first step forward. So we learned that. Now, there's another one that we've noticed in the news. David Lee Edwards, who won a $27 million jackpot and burned through it on a mansion, luxury cars, and a private jet, all while battling a severe drug addiction. So he lost everything and then died penniless. And some people say, well, you were born broke and you died broke. So yeah, you lived a fulfilling life. Nah, that's all right. I can leave some paper behind. If I'm not being buried with it, I can leave some paper behind. Like it says, we're keeping our financial gardens, cleaning the weeds out, and pruning. So our money grows. He is right. That's exactly right. These stories aren't just about bad financial planning. They are symptoms of SWS, but there's an opposite reaction that just as destructive that analysis recognized as paralysis. And this is going to be the sheer number of options and immense pressures to not screw up that can be so overwhelming that the person freezes, unable to make any decisions at all. And they're paralyzed by the shock. Oh, he said, hold on. I only come to channels that lift me up. Remember to like and subscribe. This is what we're about. You gotta make yourselves better. You gotta make yourselves better. Make it do what it do. And these individuals will find themselves paralyzed by the shock and the responsibility. And this indecision can just be a damaging and reckless spending scenario as their fortune gets eaten away by inflation or they miss crucial opportunities. Now, John found himself bouncing between these two extremes. One week he'd buy expensive watches on the whim, chasing that initial high, and the next he'd spend a day or several days even agonizing over a simple investment, terrified of making the wrong financial decision. The money that was supposed to bring him peace had brought him chaos, and his relationships were in tatters, and his sense of self was gone, and he was more miserable than he'd ever been. He had hit rock bottom where the dream was officially dead. And this is one of the worst issues that anybody can go through. The experience that John had was a hollow echo in his massive house and a perfect metaphor for how he felt inside. So John would have looked in the mirror one morning and didn't recognize the tired, haunted man looking back at him. He would have had everything he ever dreamed of, and he'd never been more miserable. And that was his moment of clarity. The money wasn't the problem. His relationships with the money was the problem. And he knew if he didn't do something, this fortune would destroy him. Now, his journey back wasn't a quick fix. It was a slow, deliberate process of rebuilding his life from the ground up with his wealth as a tool, not his master, which is going to be completely different than what we were experiencing before. Now, this is the path out of sudden wealth syndrome, because he doesn't have to go bankrupt like some of the other ones did. He actually could realize as he's losing too much money too quickly that he needs to reassess his situation if he would have been wise like the rest of us. But we learn through catastrophic failure, and we learn through mistakes. And once we made those changes, now we're able to take action on those changes. The single most important first step after coming into unexpected wealth is to do absolutely nothing. First thing you want to do is resist every urge to make a huge life altering decision. Don't quit your job. Don't buy a mansion. Don't start handing out cash. This cooling off period of 3 to 6 months is critical, especially during tax time. You're riding an emotional tsunami. Your judgment is clouded, and you're in the worst possible state to make sound decisions. So during this time, during this honeymoon phase, the money should be parked in a safe, boring, liquid account. The goal isn't to grow it, it's to protect it from your own impulses while you get your head straight. He says, say no more. Shh, don't tell nobody. But no, look, that I would have invested it. I would have took, if I got $50 million today, I probably would put a third of it on PSCC, a third of it on Orchid Island, and a third of it on AGNC, and then took the ex dividends and put that on some of the other ones on the core satellite, and then take the monthly dividends that will be coming in from these accounts and start dropping $10,000 a month into my bank account. That's it. If I put $50 million up and I grab two 18% stocks and one 15% stock, I'm averaging over 15% between the three. I would take some of that. That means that out of that 10 million, I'd be getting somewhere close to 1,600,000 out of every 10. So you had 50 mil. Let's say let's round it down and say that you wasted the first 10 mil, which is stupid, but if you would have, and then you had 10 mil, or let's say that you used that 10 mil for taxes, and you have 40 mil left over, and now you got $4.8 million getting paid to you every year off your portfolio of it just sitting there doing nothing, not even doing a dividend rotation strategy, just sitting there doing nothing. And out of that 4.8 million, you would take like 4 million and put it towards stuff, buying different things, and take that other 800,000 and deposit it into your account every year, where you're giving yourself like $10,000 or $20,000 a month as an automatic payment to your bank account. That's it. I wouldn't be doing nothing else. He said, now you sound like an employee. Let's say 60 million. 1/3 is 20 million in stocks. 2/3 left. Nah, I would out of 40 million, because some people would spend some of it and pay off all of their debts. So if you own a house, you're gonna put the $250,000 down on the house. If you own a car, you're gonna put the $30,000 left on the car. You're gonna pay off your debts. That's the first thing that people are gonna do. But right after you pay off all of your debts and maybe pay your utility bills for the next 12 months and buy you a brand new phone because your phone sucks, That's where you need to seriously draw the line and park the rest of the cash and then put that shit up somewhere. Having a safety net is important. And before I start wasting big money, after all the things that I've learned about saving and investing, I would put the money in a place where the principal would turn interest while I think about what I'm going to do with this money. And if you're getting $4-5 million a year as a payout off of the money sitting still, I got plenty of time to figure it out because my standard of living, if I own everything, is under $20,000 a year. So if I'm getting $100,000 or $200,000 a year, I got plenty of money to waste, and I still got plenty of money to invest, and I still have everything that I need, and brand new car, no maintenance, house is fully repaired. If I got a second house, started up a real estate business, whatever the fuck I wanted to do, and still had $49 million left with the capabilities of putting up $2 million a year in taxes, I'd be able to do it. But that's because I went through the school of hard knocks and graduated out of it twice. How much debt would you have? Can't be $50 million. No, most broke folks don't have more than $50,000 worth of debt outside. Well, I'm not going to say that. Most of us would have less than $1 million worth of debt because middle class individuals would have a house that would be more or less between $350,000 and $550,000, $750,000 if you're in California. So a house, apartment, condo, about $500,000 roughly. They'd have a car, which when they bought the car was like $20,000, $30,000 because they're broke. They might still owe something on it, $15,000, $20,000. So, not much left. If they paid off their student loans, like I said, you would be able to have $49 million left, $49 million, $48 million if you had $500,000 worth of student loans because you was a med student. But the average student has less than $100,000 worth of debt. So with less than $100,000 worth of debt and less than $500,000 left on your mortgage and less than $50,000 left on your car note, you're still under $1 million. You should be able to pay everything off. Your light bill, $200 a month. If that, you give them $2,000. That's 10 months. Your phone bill, $75 a month. If that, you give them $7,000. That's 7 years. They not coming for you no more. That's it. That's it. You paid all the stuff. Outside now, it says just the car insurance that you got to pay every 6 months. There's nothing else for you to buy. There's nothing else, or at least invest in as far as your personal standard of living. Most people's personal standard of living is the cost of the bare necessities plus the cost of luxuries. That's really what it is. When you shave off the luxuries, the bare necessities ain't that expensive. A $68,000 a year lifestyle probably has $40,000 a year worth of bare necessity expenses that's covering the cost of 2 people. And then you have the luxuries. You say, Mom, new house, $1 million. Shit. I will buy a house big enough to put Mom in the in-law suite. Oh, that old folks in certain states can file a petition with their state and get tax exemption on their property, right? So if you're over the age of 68, Michael, you should look into that. If you own your own home and you're still paying taxes on it, you should look into finding the documents that you need to file for your state to get tax exemption on your homestead. You're welcome. So by riding the wave for me, I saved you some money. He said that new Rolex, that Rolls Royce. I don't know about all that because Rolls Royce actually made a driverless Rolls Royce for I think $550,000, which is still you're at $1.5 million right now, and a Rolex is $53,000. So you're at like $1.6 million right now. You own your own house. You got you an overly expensive car. You got you some overly expensive jewelry. You paid off all of your back debt, and you still only shaved off $1.5 million. If you gave 10% to the government as taxes, let's say you gave 20 something percent to the government as taxes, where you're looking at like $8 to $10 million worth of taxation off of the $50 million, you're still at $11.5 million that came out of your $50 million, which still puts you at like 30 million or so. That's just chilling there. So I don't understand. I understand because they partying up a storm. They're paying off all of their friends' debt. They're buying their friends brand new cars. They're buying their families brand new cars. $50 million for one person is a lot of money, but $50 million for 50 people is not a lot of money. Not in today's economy. $50 million for 50 million people is $1 million a person. And just like I told you, you can pay off all of your debt within $2 million, depending on who you are. And if you start throwing wasteful spending on top of that, you likely see yourself into the $2 to $3 million area. So if you divided $50 million between 50 people, 50 of your closest kin folks, your closest friends, your ass would be broke real fucking quick. And then the taxes, 1/3 taxes, 30. Yeah, they gonna get you. They gonna gut you like a fish. So your 50 million, oh yeah, because that's a prize tax too, not to mention. So you gonna get taxed out the ass. You gonna get taxed out the ass. Out of your 50, they gonna take about 20 to 25 million. So you start with 25 million. Then when you start paying off debt, you down to about 20 million. And then your friends, so now you only got 20 of your closest friends that can get $1 million from you before you broke as fuck again. I'm trying to tell y'all, this isn't what we need to be doing. We need to be putting that money somewhere safe, like I told you. Don't mess with it somewhere. Just put it somewhere and just leave it there for a little bit. You just trying to protect it from your impulses while you get your head straight. So if you're starting from $25 million, that's a low number from 50. Now this pause is going to allow the initial shock to subside, creating the mental space that you need to think clearly. Now, since you've been used to being rich for 6 months, now you can start being rational and logical with the distribution of your capital. Moms now, shoo, mom gonna be chilling. Acting too quickly is the single biggest mistake that people make when they have drastic change in their life. The second thing that you can get a lot of money on becoming the CEO of a new company. So you can get a lot of money out of this if you're becoming a CEO of a new company. You incorporated, and no CEO runs a multi-million-dollar company alone. You need to hire a team of trusted, experienced professionals, almost like the Trump Towers. A crucial step that you need to take, where these should not be your friends or family. That is a specific criteria. It cannot be your friends or family. You need objective, unbiased expertise. Your team should include at least 3 people. A fee-only financial advisor. Fee only is a non-negotiable expectation. He said, oh, mom's new home? Nah. Mom new home was a trailer park. Shoo. Yeah, if you buy a trailer park and rent it out to your mom. I'll shave some money off your rent to be the property manager. Damn right. Now, this means that that agent would get paid a flat fee for their services, not commission for selling your products. Their interests are aligned with yours. They'll help you create real financial plans based on your goals. Get you a certified public accountant, which is a CPA. Your tax bill is going to be huge, and immediately it will be a challenge. And with 50 something million dollars in your pocket, the IRS will be knocking on your door. A good CPA will help you navigate the complex tax codes, plan for payments, and structure your finances in the most tax efficient way. Get you an estate planner attorney. Suddenly, you have a legacy to protect. So this lawyer will help you draft a will and set up trusts in multiple countries around the world to protect your assets for your kids or other beneficiaries that you would want to receive this stuff if you pass before them. Now, this isn't just about death. Trust can also protect your money from creditors, lawsuits, and even your own bad decisions. Because once you put the money into the trust, it no longer belongs to you, it belongs to the trust, and you benefit from the resources that the trust has. So if you're if you put your $25 million that you got left into a trust that's generating revenue, and that revenue is paying you like $5,000 a month, that's all you got is $5,000 a month. You got $25 million, but you're only spending that $5,000 a month to cover your bills and everything to that effect. But you don't need for nothing, so you don't got to get up and go to work every day. Now, this team is going to form a protective barrier between you and the chaos of being a millionaire. Managing the money is only half the battle. Managing the meaning of the money is the other harder half. Now, this is where a specific specialist will come in, a financial therapist or a psychologist who understands wealth related issues. And this might sound like a luxury, but it's one of the most effective tools for fighting sudden wealth syndrome. You can talk to your psychiatrist about, your psychologist about anything. How you need to fire your wife because she's not performing very well, how you need to fire the children, how you need to hire some children from South Africa that'll really do it for 75 cents a day. You need to put the pieces together, play it. Michael said you can live on $5,000 a month. Yes, you can. You can live on $2,000 a month in the United States, as a matter of fact. You can live good on $2,000 a month in the United States, as a matter of fact. Some people can find it in certain states in the country where they can live under $2,000 a month and not have to do without. It just depends on which state you're staying in and what's the cost of living. Can you do $5,000 per month for a total lifestyle in California or New York or Brooklyn? Probably not. Could you make that work in Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, Utah, Wisconsin, Illinois, Arizona? Probably, depending on if you're going to be inner city or if you're going to be rural. But again, if you got $25 million, you don't have to live in the United States to live off that $5,000 a month. You could live in the Philippines for $2,000 a month. You could live in Japan for $800 a month. You could live in Rwanda. Special shout out to Rwanda. You could live in Bangladesh. Special shout out to Bangladesh. St. Kitts and Nevis said give them $250,000 and you got no taxation, so you can just live there. You like possum for dinner? Anything that used to have meat. Well, I always said roadkill save bullets. So if you hit the deer with your car, strap it to the hood and cover the dent. Now, a good therapist is going to give you a safe space to unpack the guilt, anxiety, and paranoia that you're feeling because you don't feel like you should have to help those family members that are guilting you into doing it. And they can give you strategies for setting those non-negotiable expectations for behavior with family and help you learn to say no without destroying your relationships with your friends and family. Now, for John, this was the biggest turning point. Admitting he needed help turned out to be the first step towards feeling less alone and more in control. And with your team in place and your emotional health being addressed, you can finally create a comprehensive plan. And this is the much more than a budget type of plan. A budget tells you where your money went. A plan tells you your money is about to go where. So the plan should be a roadmap built around your personal values. So what you actually want from this money: early retirement, travel the world, start a charity, whatever you want to do. Your financial advisor can help you translate those goals into concrete numbers. This process is incredibly grounding And it shifts the focus from the overwhelming idea of millions of dollars, to a tangible, purpose driven plan. Now, the final deepest step is to find a sense of purpose beyond the money. An identity crisis happens when your old identity is stripped away. The only way to solve it is to build a new identity. For many, this involves philanthropy. It doesn't have to, though. Andrew Carnegie once said, "The man who dies thus rich dies disgraced." Finding a cause you care about and using your wealth to make a difference can provide an incredible sense of meaning. For others, it might be starting a business or going back to school or dedicating time to a passion. The key is to find something that gives you a sense of accomplishment, completely separate from your net worth. For John, this means starting a small foundation of capabilities to fund music education in local schools. Now, it's a passion that he'd had since he was a little kid. It gave him a reason to get up in the morning and a new identity. John, the philanthropist. He also started the slow work of meeting relationships. He started to work everything through. And really, one of the things when you're doing John the philanthropist, that's actually a very financially profitable position to be in, because John the philanthropist is donating some of the money that he earned from the lottery, which gives him a good reputation, to helping less fortunate individuals. But that donation is a tax write off. So the profits that he's making off of the remaining $25 million gets taxed less or not at all, based on the financial contributions to his society that he did at his own expense. That's a fantastic way to go. John, a philanthropist, can set up a publicly funded charity and then put a percentage of his um, capital into that charity, and then himself use that charity to look out for folks. And if he spends 40 hours a week doing that with his charity, which is 8 hours a day with a 1 hour lunch break, he can give himself a salary from his own charity. You're welcome. And the executive board of a charity can get up to 5% of what was donated. So if you donated 10% of your money to the charity, you would have donated $2.5 million out of $25 million to the charity. And if 5% of that money can go to the executive board, right? You're starting to take like $50,000 out and paying off board members. Y'all got to understand, there's a thing for everything. But he also starts mending some of those relationships, having honest conversations with his brothers and his friends about the pressures he's been under. And it wasn't easy with him, but it turned out to be something real. The journey out of the nightmare is a journey back to yourself. It's about recognizing that money can buy comfort. Money can buy some happiness, but it cannot buy all the happiness that people believe that it could buy. It's not going to buy purpose or connection. Well, it might buy attention, but it's not going to buy meaningful attention. You have to build those things yourself. The journey of John is a fictional mashup, but the story that forms this is all too real. They do have a lot of stories out there of people like Bud Post and David Lee Edwards, cautionary tales of lives derailed by a dream come true. The statistics are sobering. A significant percentage of lottery winners are more likely to declare bankruptcy within 3 to 5 years than the average person who stayed poor their entire life. So look at professional sports, where some studies suggest that a shocking number of former athletes, with some estimates as high as 78% for the NFL players, face financial ruin just a few years after retirement, living above your financial means. These numbers aren't just about bad financial planning. They are the final tragic outcome of a profound psychological crisis, which is sudden wealth syndrome. A fundamental truth: we aren't emotionally equipped for the lives we fantasize about. The dream of a sudden windfall is one of effortless bliss, and the reality is of crushing pressure, existential confusion, and terrifying isolation. Michael says at 70, I'll take that odds. Look, hey, at 40, I'll take that odds. I'm like, shoot, I'll spend the next 30 years managing that shit wisely. Wealth is going to be an amplifier of whatever it is that you got going on. It will amplify your good habits as well as your bad ones. It will amplify your strengths and, more dangerously, your weaknesses. So, if you're the kind of person that likes to cover stuff up, now you have a staff that covers stuff up for you. That is called the cleaners, giving you the white glove treatment. Michael says road trip and party bus. Here we go. I can't say I'm going to do a party bus. One of the problems with party buses is that they're not zombie proof. I would party and then take a private limo. And my party would be like karaoke night at a local pub, where I would buy 2 to 3 drinks for myself, and then I would let other people buy me drinks. Because I can say, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be up there doing that T-Pain. I'm on a boat. You got to live wisely. You guys have to understand that this money won't make you a new person. It will only make you more of who you already are. So if you fuck shit up, you become a millionaire, a multimillionaire, you will more existentially fuck shit up. The ultimate surprise of unexpected wealth is that it was never about the money at all. He said, no, you rich. Yeah, we could be rich, but I'm not going to party bus nowhere. Rich people don't survive zombie apocalypse anyway. They're usually the first ones to die, if not the fifth. Usually it's the poorest, most destitute virgin person that survives. And people have to understand that once they become rich, it's not about the money, it's about them. This is a very huge wake-up call. So if you guys found tonight's show with the little hiccup in the middle, very educational, and you look into the psychological areas of wealth and you found it very interesting, make sure that you guys subscribe for more deep dives into the unforeseen and the unseen forces that shapes our lives. And make sure that you guys know that in the comment section, the whole afternoon, we had some special shout outs from Twitch for the young lady that came in and asked me some very slick questions about the business. Special shout out to Mike, the admin over the comment section. Make sure that you know that you guys can throw comments in the comment section, because what's the most surprising part of this journey for you is a question that you should be asking. If you won millions, what would be the most surprising part? Because I'm not rich. I'm not rich. I'm blind man broke. I can't see none of the money in the safe. So I appreciate you guys that hung out with us for today, even past the glitch halfway through the show. We're going to be calling the people up, trying to get them to fix everything for us now. I want to say, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you, ladies, to make it make sense. So, ladies, please make it make sense. And fellas, we are right now 65% male-driven podcast from the male's perspective. And I give you guys this information to help you guys become better, higher value men. I want you guys to work on your personal life as well as your financial life. Any information that you have, you can utilize to make yourselves higher value women, ladies. So don't think that this information is exclusive to just the men, because you ladies can help yourselves with becoming higher value women as well. The goal here is to figure out the things in your life that need to change, the things that you need to prepare for, because we're talking about what happens if wealth falls into your lap. Well, what happens if a good raise falls into your lap? The same dynamic is the same. Don't waste it. Take a little bit of time to sit on the difference, and then start trying to invest it wisely. Once you can put money aside that you know that you don't need, you got money that's set aside that you know that you can invest. If you take the money that you have extra and you go and spend it, you're always going to be broke. So the goal is, if you don't want to be broke no more, is to find ways to no longer be broke. Find ways to hold on to 5 or 10 or 20% of your paycheck every week. Take 10 or 20% of the money that you did not spend out of the week in between paychecks and put that into a stock option. You don't got to put $1,000 a month to the stock option. You can put $200 a month into the stock option. Anything is better than nothing. If you put money somewhere where it's making money for you, when you do find yourself in a situation where you need money, you have more options. So then you don't have to go to Amscot and borrow. That's what my mama used to say. Always prepare for the worst, hope for the best, and take whatever happens in between. That's the most effective way to get life done. So, special shout out to Michael one more time. I really appreciate you guys coming to this and that, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. I'm going to go see if my homeboy did his moves in chess, because I think he smacked me up on this one game, but the other game, I'm going to crush him. So he's one out of 20. Not really. I think it's like 7 or 8 that I got in a row. And then I think he got a win in there somewhere. If he play too much, it'll be a draw, and then he's going to be mad. He got no love. I got no love. Yeah, it better have been checkmate. Because if it wasn't checkmate, I'd have stalled that son of a bitch out till it got a stalemate. It'd switch from a checkmate to a stalemate in a heartbeat. But yeah, I'm gonna go check and see what's going on with chess. I'm gonna go ahead and see what they got going on with the down tower that just kicked off our podcast today, so that we don't have that problem tomorrow. And I want to thank you guys for coming to this and that, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. I'm your host, Xander, and I'm going to see you guys tomorrow night. See you tomorrow night, Michael.
Chase validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt upon the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher, constantly making my own climb. My network is my network. That's my personal command. I'm not mounted on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never yield.